I'm Kim Slezak with Nebraska Forest Service, and you look like you're my audience. So, not a lot of people feel we have forests in Nebraska, but we do. We have a wide range of, from streamside forests to windbreaks and shelter belts and small woodlots. We have a lot of forests in Nebraska, urban and community forests. So we are around the state to help you manage your forests, maybe plant some trees, get some benefits out of the trees around your farm. The title of the presentation was Hidden Resources on Your Farm, and those can be the trees. Trees can provide all sorts of benefits, from windbreak, slowing the wind down from hitting your farm, house, and helping you with utility bills, to keeping the odors contained. If you have pig or cow confinement area, the odors can be contained better with trees around it. And or a woodlot, you could have a sustainable supply of fuel wood if you burn for heat. And so trees are good, even on the plains. So any questions or thoughts? Let's have a nice conversation here. I don't want to spend the whole time just talking, but trees can provide us a lot of benefits. The best thing is upright and growing, but after its lifespan is over, it can provide all sorts of benefits as wood products. So we like to see trees utilized when they do have to come out. So questions, thoughts? All right. Yes?
How about the invasive cedars? Do you promote those, or do you cut them down, get rid of them?
Eastern red cedars are one of those trees that you either love them or you hate them. They have a place in our forested system. They have a place in the windbreak. They're one of the hardiest trees we have for survival in droughts. It's just a maintenance issue. If they're are encroaching upon your grazing land, that's a maintenance issue. If we could just figure out how to plant only male trees, so the seeds weren't spread by the birds, we would have less issue there. But they tell me that would make the cost of the trees a little bit prohibitive for the general landowner, if we were able to figure that out and only sell male trees. So, but it's and the wood itself is beautiful. So, you know, you could grow it for a product, you know, when you're taking them out. Yeah, for those, I can never say that word, but for cheese boards, yeah.
Yeah, that's big now.
But yeah, and they have, it's a weather-resistant property in the cedar, in the heartwood, so they make good fence posts. They last a long time. So yeah, when you're taking them out and when they're in your way, we can certainly utilize them. Anything from wood chips to lumber. So, yes, ma'am. No such thing as a stupid question.
If I'm new to the area, what are your resources for having a conversation about tree identification and using a plant collection? Is there someone that comes and says back to that, and this is what you need to get rid of, and this is what you need to do?
That's what we're here for. We can visit your property and talk to you about your tree resources, what you have, based on your objectives, steps you might take to meet your objectives based on what's there. Right, windbreak, shelter belt, just a general tree planting, orchard, right. So, and a wood lot for, like I said, either sustainable wood harvest, growing mushrooms, woody florals is a big and upcoming business venture. And I have cards, so we'll give you a card. And on the back, on that little table over there, there's a brochure that has a list of all our offices. So if you're in York County and West, that would be me. Seward County is another fellow staff member who's out of Omaha office. But we're here to help. So. Anybody want to be a forester when they grow up? Just a farmer? Not that there's just a farmer, but you know. You're into ag? Nodding heads, okay. Well, there's agroforestry where you intermix crops and trees to get various benefits. Silvopasture is where you plant trees and have a tree crop along with your cattle. Alley cropping, so that it's kind of like windbreaks, but where maybe you have a nut crop and then a regular row crop, nut crop, row crop, and the alley cropping helps provide benefits to your crop ground and also provides you another source of income. Pecans, hazelnuts, probably other trees that aren't coming to my head right now. Yes?
So is there like a law that you have to buy trees that are from nurseries, or can you just buy them from? Well, I have a neighbor that, you know, he kind of breeds trees, like he has plucots.
Apricots and plums.
And plums mixed, and he makes them, you know, he crosses the trees himself and grows them, and, you know, he'd like to sell them, but I guess he said, I don't think you can sell them. I think
He
you
could,
have to go
he
to
would just
nursery.
need a USDA, not a USDA, a Nebraska Department of Agriculture permit, where he's a nursery supplier. If they're dug and transplanted, they make sure there's no insects or disease going in the soil from his property to somebody else's property. So yes, he could do that. He just needs to talk to the Department of Agriculture. So, yeah, and plucots are pretty good. Although I'm not a plum fan, I love apricots.
Yeah,
So.
they are better. So how about honeybees and trees? What, they need fruit trees, or they need...
Honeybees.
Do they have any trees?
Yeah, honeybees, there's very few trees that are actually pollinated by bees, but they do, the trees can provide other habitat resources for the bees. So I know of some beekeepers that keep their hives near trees just for the cooling effect in the summertime from the hot sun. And if there's a swarm leaving a hive, looking for a new home, sometimes they'll go to a tree. We had a neighbor rescue a swarm from one of our ditches. My husband found it in a plum bush, so she came and harvested the bees. So, yeah. So we have a new program called the Nebraska Forest Restoration Program, and it's a grant where we got money from the Natural Resources Conservation Service to help landowners do windbreak renovations, and forest stand improvement. So we use EQIP rates to do the forest stand improvement, but it's a shorter process for us to do the projects than the NRCS. And there's a brochure on the table about that. Like I said, any tree coming down should be utilized, whether it's for timber, lumber, not a whole lot of trees, especially cedar trees, grow that large. But from a woodlot, you can get all sorts of tree sizes. But if it doesn't fit on a sawmill to make lumber, we can make biochar from it, which can be a soil amendment. And basically, you put the wood through a pyrolysis, which is burning in low to no oxygen atmosphere, and it makes carbon. And that carbon we can add to the soil for all sorts of reasons. If you mix it with compost and then put the compost out on your crop ground or your garden, the char helps kind of supercharge the compost and vice versa. The biochar is like a miniature hotel for microbes and good products that help feed the soil, or feed microbes in the soils to help with the soil health. And so there's a brochure over there about making biochar. We do not sell any, but we could help you figure out how to make it yourself, or there are a few places in the state making it. So, and I'm sure you can just buy it at a garden center or something, but I don't know where it would be made.
My development of my property and the people that are already living around there.
Let's talk after, and maybe I can connect you with a few people that we're aware of. Because there's people popping up all the time doing things that don't necessarily ask us for help. So,
How about that ash tree?
how about that ash tree?
Yeah. So what do you recommend besides, I mean, the city's cutting them down in all the urban areas?
Right.
So-
They, a lot of cities are being proactive. It's not found in many cities in the state yet, but once the emerald ash borer is in the tree and has so many galleries in it that we're starting to see, flagging, meaning the trees are turning yellow when they shouldn't be. The tree is drying out, and by the time it's entirely dead by the emerald ash borer, it is a hazard.
Right.
And when it falls and hits the ground, it can shatter and send chunks flying. So it's also not safe for a arborist to climb to take it down. So a lot of places are being proactive in taking them down now while it's still safe. But that also means that it's also a good product. Products can be made from that tree before it's all dried out and dead. So planting instead, we just need to start doing a diversity of trees instead of, we thought we learned the elm tree and the Dutch elm disease killed all the elm trees and most of the elm trees in Nebraska. And so what we do, we turn around and plant it all ash. So we need to do a diversity of trees in our cities and our windbreaks, everything, so that one disease or insect doesn't wipe out the whole thing. So there's several Kentucky coffee trees underutilized in the state, and that's a nice tree to plant. Depending on your site, and we can help to figure out, we look at your soil properties and help figure out what trees would be good to grow on your property.
Are fruit trees too expensive? Because like fruit trees bear fruit and feed the world.
Right? None of the NRDs sell large trees. We all start with seedlings if we go to the NRD, and they do have some fruit trees. They apricot and a couple different cherries, plums. So yeah, you can start out with the small ones and get yourself an orchard going. Or there are some, I don't know price-wise, I haven't looked, but there are some wholesale nurseries that you can get some fruit trees from.
So what's your suggestion if you know nothing about tree identification, anything like that? What are some resources that you have?
There is, I'd have to look on our website to see where it is, but we do have it'd be printed, it'd be like card size, tree ID booklet. There are several apps that you can put on your phone. Virginia Tech has a great tree ID app. I use actually Google Lens is then you don't have to install anything else, but it's done pretty well for our trees if you don't know what you're looking at. So
And there's all those places, like I know Arbor Lodge, they have pawpaw trees, they have trees that you never see, and you take a little tour around Arbor Lodge down in Nebraska City.
well, we have a Nebraska statewide arboretum, has small little arboretums all over the state. And so that's another, maybe there's one near the school. Where are you guys from?
Aurora.
I think there's one in Aurora. I'd have to look. But yeah, Nebraska Statewide Arboretum is a good resource for finding those. Planttrees.org, I think, is their website. Or Plant Nebraska. So, yeah, you bet. So,
The biggest use I've seen of trees has always been windbreak. Is there other uses other than just on the farm having a windbreak, or what do you think?
well, Windbreaks on the farm can provide many benefits. Just having ornamental plantings help with wildlife as well. In Nebraska on the plains, windbreak's probably the
The number one.
biggest, the number
Yeah,
one.
Yeah.
A lot of people forget why our ancestors planted trees. But yeah, they can slow the wind from blowing soil, so avoid soil loss. You can plant them such that you're harvesting snow. Even in the summertime, the hot blowing winds dry out the corn crop and soybeans and stuff. So if you have a windbreak planted in the right place, you can reduce that drying effect on your crops. And a lot of people think, well, you know, the trees are taking moisture away from the crop. Well, the first few rows near the tree line, correct, do get less, but overall, your crop ground is getting much more benefit and can increase your bushels. But they also provide other things. Like I said, you could have grow mushrooms, other food crops in your windbreak, woody florals. So it's wildlife habitat as well as benefits to our crops or our farmsteads.
And I know there are two trees. There's the ones that lose their leaves, and then there's the ones that stay green all winter long.
Deciduous trees lose their leaves. Coniferous trees have needles and scales and keep them all year round.
Is there a benefit to having one over the other, having both?
We like to see a diversification in the windbreak, so usually there's a row of conifer trees and a row of deciduous trees and then maybe some bushes. So that, because a lot of the conifer trees, pines, especially as they grow, they shade out their lower branches and then lose them. So if you have pine trees and then shrubs, the shrubs keep the lower winds from going through as the pine trees grow larger. But like I said, a diversity so that, you know, years ago, 50 so years ago, we were pushing Scotch pine or Scots pine and Austrian pine because they do well in drought situations and grow well here. They are both native to Europe. And then the native pest, the nematode, spreads pine wilt disease, and the Scotch and the Austrian pines didn't grow up with that, so they're susceptible, and now we've got tons of Scotch and Austrian pines dying from the pine wilt disease. So we've learned over the years, you know, not only do we have native or non-native pests killing trees like the emerald ash borer, but then there's non-native trees get killed by native pests, native diseases. So keeping things native to North America is a better venue if we have, and they're looking all the time for new tree species that may do well in Nebraska, that grow in other states. That's one of the things Nebraska Statewide Arboretum does, is experiment with trees to see what else, especially as climate is changing a little bit and we're getting warmer and drier. Trees maybe that do well in Kansas will do well here as the temperatures change. So, always looking.
Are there any pines that have been resistant to?
Native pines are resistant to pine wilt, so ponderosa pine, jack pine, white pine, those are all resistant to pine wilt disease. I mean, they'll get it, but they won't die from it. And ponderosa is what was planted mainly out in Halsey for the Nebraska National Forest.
What kind was it?
Ponderosa pine. So I went to college. I went to college at Northern Arizona University in the middle of the largest ponderosa pine forest in the world. So, yeah, people don't think of pine trees in Arizona, but
So what do you think about those aspen trees up by the Niobrara?
they're lovely. I saw them for the first time last fall.
So why don't we plant aspen trees?
We can. Faller Nursery here in York carries a native aspen.
Which nursery?
Faller,
Oh yeah, the one out by
right, the one north of town. Right, yeah. So yeah, his are from the native aspen.
So how did you get them from the native aspen?
You have to ask Todd.
Because they're kind of sacred to Nebraska. They're from the Ice Age, the aspen up by the Niobrara River. So it's kind of strange that they'd be digging them up and all of a sudden.
Well, I mean, they propagate them. that they're not necessarily taking a bunch from the wild, but they do propagate from that source. So, yeah. What else can I tell you? Anybody? Where's your farm?
Osceola,
Okay.
but I grew up in Southeast Virginia around a lot of trees.
Ah, I lived in Prince William County for a while.
Okay, so I'm not far from that.
Yeah.
Has there been any research or anything done with like your deep taproot trees like pine or spruce as far as pulling nitrates out of the ground to keep it out of the water?
Well, I know planting forested riparian buffer strips help, but whether or not specific research on if those specific trees are pulling nitrates out, no, I haven't heard of any, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Right.
But that's one place biochar can come into play. If you make berms or swales with the biochar at the edges of the fields, if you're having an issue with nitrates leaching through subsurface water or whatever, making biochar, either swales at the edge of the field where the water's running, or even just applying biochar to your field, it will absorb. Not only does it help with good macronutrients and things, it'll absorb the bad stuff and lock it up. So we can talk if you'd like. I have no idea how long I'm talking.
You have I think you have a 45-minute block if you want to use it, but you can end it whenever you want.
Okay. Well, it depends on my audience. Who wants to talk about trees?
What do we have for nut trees in Nebraska that grow good?
Pecans grow well. Walnuts grow well. We have been experimenting with hazelnuts, finding a variety that doesn't get, I forget the name of the disease that will infect hazelnuts here, but we have joined a consortium, Oregon State, Ohio State, and UNL, Nebraska Forest Service, has been growing a few different varieties to see which ones do well, and we have trials across the state. So hazelnut is another one that we have found a variety that does well, and I'd have to look to see. I don't want to tell you I don't want to tell you the wrong variety, but it has the word big in it. But let's see, hazelnut, walnut, pecan. Nebraska Nut Growers Association would be a resource for finding out more information on that.
Okay.
And Brian at Great Plains Nursery is running that.
Okay.
So in Weston. So Brian would be a good resource.
So how about your job? What's an average day?
As a conservation forester, rural forester with the Nebraska Forest Service, I help landowners with windbreaks, windbreak renovation, planning them, forest stand improvement, where, for example, a gentleman down by Edgar has decided he wants to renovate his oak stand, so we're taking out the mulberry and the elm and things that aren't oak associated, so that his oak trees grow better, and opening it up so there's grazing for his cows. So we help with plans for that. We do have cost share that helps with that through that NRCS grant we have. That just, typical things. Can you tell me what trees I have? That sort of thing. That's my typical days. I'm trying to help grow some forest products utilization, have people thinking that when the tree comes down, it just doesn't have to go to the tree dump. We can make something out of it. So that's my big soapbox, that the trees are a resource for us, and if they're not going to be green and growing, we can still have good benefits from them. Had a landowner put in a pivot down by Shickley, and they kept trees from the windbreak that they ripped out, and he made something for the grandchild, so they have something made of wood from the farm as an heirloom thing to keep. So that's what it's all about.
Which oak or oaks is it that will hold the leaves through the winter?
Marcescent oaks. I've been trying to memorize that list, honestly. I think swamp white is one of them, but I can definitely verify for you which ones. Because those also help if you have one of the marcescent oaks in your windbreak and it holds onto the leaves through the winter, that helps slow the wind even more than just bare branches. But
I planted a couple different oaks 16 years ago. One of them's hard to grow, and the other one's growing really nicely and keeps the leaves on there. I know one of them was a pin oak, but I can't remember.
a pin oak would not be keeping its leaves through the winter. That I can tell you. So.
I have a tree that keeps its leaves until the new ones come. And the
Right.
new ones just out. It seems to be an oak, it's shiny, but it
Yeah, if you have the picture, I could, but we can come out, like I said. And where are you located? You said east of York? Okay. Sure, we can, yeah.
On a spruce, how big can you use a mechanical transplanter in?
Depends on the mechanical transplanter. There's a gentleman in McCook that I know has moved the stem was probably 6 inches. So it was pretty tall. He moved several for the McCook Airport that was thrown in the way. So it depends on the equipment.
In the 4 to 6 foot range, you can probably.
Oh, at least, yeah. Yeah, there's there's companies in the Denver area that'll move a 30-foot tree.
Okay.
So just depends on the equipment. But yeah, the smaller usually the better for moving.
So how about more on the residential side, not the farming side? What do you suggest people get in town?
Well, you always want to be wary of power lines, so things that will fit the space. And we do have, especially the Nebraska Statewide Arboretum has lists of trees for use in urban areas, just based kind of like size-based. The dwarf type of trees, if you're near a lot of power lines or what have you, we want to be wary of planting them too close to the house. Because when you plant the tree and it's this big, you don't think about what it's going to be in 20 years. We don't want it rubbing shingles or the side of your house and stuff. So, but they also, placed correctly, can help reduce your utility bills. When I lived in New Mexico, I planted some hybrid cottonwoods to shade my patio and the sliding glass door. Before the trees got large enough, you couldn't be in the dining room in the early morning with the sun coming through the patio door until those trees were big, and it helped. So it's all a matter of placement. On the south and west sides of the house, if you have deciduous trees, you get the solar benefit in the wintertime and the cooling benefit in the summertime. And then if you want to keep the north wind from hitting the house, having conifer trees there on that side of the house also helps. Thanks for joining us. Do you have any questions?
Does the university, I'm trying to remember, do they have a pecan grove on East Campus? Do you know?
I do not know. I haven't spent a lot of time on campus.
Do you know of anybody in Nebraska that is growing?
Nebraska nut growers would probably be the best. Our facilities manager that does the hazelnut consortium, he might know as well.
Okay.
So I can find out.
what's the one question that you wish people would ask you? That you get at the office a lot and you think if I could solve that issue across the board?
It's more of a, not necessarily a question from them, but I want people to realize that when a tree comes down, a burn pile is the last place it should go. I mean, burning wood for heat, great. But it can all be utilized. Well, if there are no other questions, I can let you guys go walk around, and I'd be happy to. I'm going to be around all day, so just
How
let's
can
chat.
people get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me. I will put some business cards over there, but you can get a hold of any Nebraska Forest Service forester by going to our website, nfs.unl.edu, and or email trees@unl.edu, and someone will put you in touch with a Nebraska forester in your area.